Good morning and welcome to our Zones of Regulation webinar. So I'm in quite a lot of schools delivering zones of regulation, and I thought it would be quite helpful for parents and staff to know a little bit more about it. So in case you're not quite sure, we are the RISE team, which is part of the Children's Society, and we go into primary schools and secondary schools across Gateshead and Newcastle delivering mental health support. And they are all our socials there on the screen and our website. So as this is a webinar, the cameras and microphone are disabled. I've turned my camera off because of previous feedback said it was a bit distracting and it obviously makes the slides a bit shorter. But there is a Q&A function and Jess is behind the scenes kind of monitoring that. She'll interrupt me and let me know if there's any questions because I can't quite see them when I'm presenting. If after the session you're thinking, well, actually, I do have a question now, here is the email at the bottom. Feel free to email any questions or queries following the session. And that's risenortheast@childrenssociety.org.uk. So as I say, I've been in a lot of schools. My name's Emma Ute, and I generally go in at the Gateshead area. So I just thought it would be helpful to kind of explain to parents what the zones of regulation actually are and explain the key topics that I teach to the children, because they might come home and start using all this terminology that you're wondering what on earth are you talking about, and how you can embed zones of regulation at home as well. So then before we talk about zones of regulation, it feels right to talk about emotional regulation. And as you know, that's just our ability to manage our behaviour, our thoughts, and our feelings in appropriate ways, depending on what the situation is. So if a child or adult, really, to be fair, is regulated, we'll be able to control those emotional reactions like anger, excitement, stress, things like that. I think a lot of the times we assume when a child is dysregulated that it just has to be anger, but it can be loads of different emotions, even that excitement when we're getting a little bit too hyper and starting to get dysregulated. When you're regulated, you're going to have positive peer interactions, so good friendships, you'll be able to focus, control impulses, be able to share and take turns in games, and generally be able to cope with stressful situations. And then oppositely, when you're dysregulated, that's when you're going to see those outbursts and those tantrums. You may have destructive behaviours, risky behaviours. So for example, maybe he's doing some self-injury, or see if they've just that dysregulated, they might run away from you, but run into a road, things like that, things that make them not safe. They might withdraw or have difficulty interacting with other people. And sleep issues is where you're going to see with that dysregulation. But unfortunately, that can work the other way. When you have sleep issues, that can cause dysregulation and vice versa. Before we can really get emotional regulation skills, children really need to have emotional literacy skills. And that's just basically naming what we can feel. Naming what we feel, sorry. If you have poor emotional literacy, that can lead to poor emotional regulation because we don't really understand why and what is happening. So I present the zones like this to children in school. And a lot of schools are probably presented in a different way, but basically there are 4 zones: the blue zone, the green zone, the yellow, and the red. It kind of gets forgotten about, but it's generally around your alertness and your energy levels. I think we're just very quick to say, oh, the blue zone's sad, the red zone's angry, but it's about how much energy and how alert you are really. So when you're in that blue zone, that's your low energy. You've just got no energy, your brain and body are moving really slowly, and you've got a low state of alertness. So that can be sad, but it can also be when you're feeling unwell, when you're feeling bored, tired. You might just be reflective. So you might be feeling content, but you're just taking in the day and reflecting on the day. Then that green zone's where you're feeling calm. So this is the ideal zone to be in, where you feel balanced, you're steady, you're focused. So you might be relaxed, ready to learn, you're good at listening. And this is the zone where classrooms really want you to be in. Then that energy starts building up. So that's why we're represented as a bit of a thermometer. And that's when you're on high alert. So you have some control, but we're maybe starting to lose control a little bit. That energy starts to increase. You have heightened focus, heightened excitement, but we're maybe starting to get a bit hyper with it. So there are pleasant emotions, so feeling silly, excited, hyper, things like that. But then on the flip side, you have unpleasant emotions where you might be feeling a bit stressed, bit anxious, a bit frustrated. And then we'll reach that top, that red zone, and that's the overwhelm zone. So we feel really overwhelmed, we're really alert, and we've got way too much energy going through our bodies. But that isn't just about feeling angry, it's when you feel out of control. So you might be feeling panic, having panic attacks, things like that, or really quite distraught and sad. But generally, we tend to think of as that angry. That's generally when the tantrums and dysregulation is. I'm going to explain what those fists are in the thermometer, but that's just basically when you're in the green zone, you are in control, and we're represented as our thumb tucked with our fingers over. And when we're in the red zone, we flip our lid and the fingers come up, but I will explain that later. Although the green zone is the best zone to be in because it feels the nicest, we do our best learning, we'll always try and reinforce that there's no such thing as a bad zone. There's no such thing as a bad emotion. Sometimes people are going to make you feel angry, sometimes you're going to feel sad. And depending on the situation, that's okay, that's necessary. And your zone, you might change throughout the day. Your zone, so you might go into the red, you might go in the blue, you might go in the green. You're going to be in and out of zones all day, depending on where you are and what's happening, and that's okay. So just as a little bit of a practice, just for something for you to think of, or feel free to type in the Q&A. Your child comes home from school and puts their head down on the table. They tell you they don't want to talk about it. Which zone do you think that they might be in? They're going to be in that blue zone with the head down, kind of suggesting that they've got no energy. So in the blue zone, you might notice behavior such as being withdrawn, head down, crying, staring out the window, struggling to focus or concentrate. They might appear tired. They might want to hide away or run away and generally just want to be alone and not speak to other people. So it's that just kind of low energy and wanting to be away from everyone. Another scenario, whilst you're watching a film, you notice that your child is wriggling around and disturbing their siblings. They are fiddling with some toys, but they're making a lot of noise. Which zone do you think that is? So just take a moment to think about that as well. And that's going to be your yellow zone. So we're starting to feel alert. We've got a lot of energy coursing through our bodies. So you're going to notice that through fidgeting, jumping around, distracting other people, walking, running, shouting, making noises, banging and tapping things, rocking on a chair, leg tapping. They might look around the room, just ask a lot of questions, asking for a lot of help. So a lot of energy going through the bodies. When you're in that overwhelm zone, that red zone, you might notice shouting, screaming, and this is where the more aggressive behavior can happen as well. Someone might be punching, kicking, hitting, pushing, walking out of a room, crossing arms, bashing, banging things, sighing, crying as well in this zone. We said it in the blue as well, but you can also cry in the red zone. Self-injury. So this isn't always about kind of cutting or things like that. They might start really like scratching the skin a lot. I see there's a lot of sessions that I do one-to-ones with where they're just scratching the skin a lot, but to the point where they start to draw blood. Or they might do it with skin pick and see if there's a little bit of a nail hanging off, and then a bit of skin loose. They might keep picking and picking. When they clench the fist, they're digging in the nails, and they're not doing it to hurt themselves. It's just they've got that much energy that they don't know what to do with it, so it may come out with behaviors like that. And then stamping feet and running away and hiding. Again, similar to other zones that we've talked about. And then you've got the ideal zone, the green zone. And that you'll see that they're able to use strategies that are helpful to them. They're able to concentrate and focus. They can take part in conversations, take part in activities, share with others, and they're generally just asking to do things that they enjoy. They're getting enjoyment out of life and choosing to spend time with family. So I just want you to take a moment and now, and again, you can put it in the Q&A chat if you want to. But just kind of for you, what kind of zone feels the most familiar for your child or children, at home or school? You don't need to share it. You can just hold it in your mind. Just think about the zones that you see with your children. when I speak to a lot of parents, it's generally that red zone or the yellow that seems the most common. I think because it's the most notable sometimes. Obviously, you're seeing that stomping, pushing, more aggressive behavior, or that kind of fidgeting behavior. So, generally, from what I've seen, parents kind of feel the emotional dysregulation is around the yellow and red zone.
Yeah, we've got a yellow in the Q&A box there, Emma.
Ah, yeah, lovely. Thank you. Yeah, it's quite a common one, and I think especially if you've got neurodiverse children, it's hard to balance whether it's emotional dysregulation or is it just kind of a sensory need, something going on. But yellow behaviors does seem quite common, especially around stress as well. So when I talk to the children, I generally do 5 weeks in their whole class, so in the classroom, and I start off talking a bit about their brain. So again, building that kind of emotional literacy, and they love a little bit of science element to it. They was a bit interested. I take in a little brain model in, and they just seem to love it. But obviously, the brain's really important to kind of understand because that's where our emotions come from, and everything that we are is because of our brain. But obviously, I don't go into massive detail because, well, I don't know all the ins and outs of the brain, to be fair. There's a lot of knowledge there. But I split it into two simple kind of parts. You've got the thinking brain, which is the prefrontal cortex on the diagram there, and the survival brain, which is the amygdala. And that's what's responsible for that dysregulation, those quick reactions. And the thinking brain, as it sounds, is basically where you do your best thinking, your smart decisions, and where you can solve problems. And I do see it children as well that your brain doesn't really develop till you're around 25, sometimes older. So I've had questions from children saying, "Do you ever get angry?" And I think they think it's a just a bit of a them problem sometimes that when they're feeling big emotions, that it's just them that feels it. But we're always learning new things. Like adults are just a lot better at regulating our emotions because we've had more practice. We've found out what works for us, and our brains are fully developed. But they're still learning and finding out what works for them. I also talk about the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn mode, and fawn's just on the next slide on its own. And that is basically when your survival brain kicks in. That is your brain on alert. It's looking for dangers, and you go into one of these responses. Your brain thinks it's in danger, so you might go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And when you're in fight mode, you think, well, I need to prepare myself because I need to fight that danger. So that's where that aggression is: the screaming, pushing, throwing objects, spitting, clenching your fists. And that flight mode is just basically getting away from the situation. So you might notice they might dart their eyes a lot because they're looking for their exit, how they can get out. They might feel restless because they're trying to they feel that they maybe just need to run quickly, and same with the fidgeting. Or they might just literally run out without concern, like I was saying before, if they might not be in a safe place to run out, if there's roads and things like that. And they'll just be doing anything to get away or stay away. Kind of a lot of the times it's staying, not wanting to go to school, they're avoiding it that way. Freeze is basically when they kind of want to hide themselves away from the danger to try and make themselves invisible to it. So you might notice that through holding the breath, they just shut down, feel like they can't move, feel numb, and they might do a little bit of daydreaming. And I think in the classroom, that obviously gets them in trouble, but you kind of have to think, well, are they daydreaming, are they a bit bored, or are they actually quite stressed? And it's a bit of a threat response to that. And then we've got the phone mode, and this is generally forgotten about and overlooked, and it's got its own slide because I think we'll miss this a lot in children. And that is basically when you want to make friends with the danger. Um, it's forgotten about because they're not causing disruption. They don't look dysregulated. They look like they're getting on with the work, but actually they might be quite stressed and quite sad. And it's that kind of people pleasing behavior. So they might pretend to be comfortable when they're not. People pleasing, looking for constant praise. Well, am I doing this right? Are you happy with me? Am I going to get wrong if it's not right? They may go along with jokes or things that peers say, even though they don't find it funny, but they worry that they might get shunned out of their friendship group. So they're doing what they need to stay in that friendship group. And they might cover up and camouflage how they feel just to blend in. So that might look like hypervigilance, so checking around the room a lot of perfectionist behavior. We'll also see that quite a lot as well. Not being sure about what they want because they're worried about upsetting other people and want to do what they want so they're not unhappy with them. Struggling to be assertive with their boundaries. Thinking that their voice doesn't matter, and a lot of the times they present different to home and school. And I think this is why it can get overlooked. And I think, unfortunately, for when they get home, they've spent all day trying to be on their best behavior, be perfect for school so they don't get wrong, or they don't fall behind, or they don't get judged. When they get home, you've probably heard this, but that's their safe space, they can relax. But unfortunately, that may then turn into fight mode, and that's where the aggression comes in, or things like that. And again, if you've got a neurodiverse child, it's a hard thing to see either in phone mode or other masking. It's obviously you know your child the best, but I like schools to know about this more because I think, as I say, because they're not causing disruption, perhaps assumed to be doing great and doing fine, but sometimes are they doing all this to blend in, or they're doing it at a great impact to themselves, or they're actually really, really stressed and struggling, but we just don't see it. So, kind of adding on to that threat response, I talk to them a bit about a faulty smoke alarm. So I'm always like, do you have a smoke alarm in your house? Has it ever went off before? And I get stories about the mum burning toast, dad burning dinner, shower steam setting them off as well. And the idea is your smoke alarm, it's not broken, it's designed to detect smoke and then go off. It senses that you've burnt your toast, it gets that smoke and it goes off. It's doing its job, but you're not in danger. Your house isn't on fire. It's just making a mistake. And that's a bit like our brain. We can trigger that survivor brain because my brain's always looking out for danger, but it can get it wrong sometimes and it can make you react to things that aren't dangerous. So that might be things like taking a test, going somewhere new, getting in trouble, being criticized, feeling embarrassed, and not understanding the task in school. They can trigger that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. So the threat response, the FFFF, it's automatic. They don't decide to do it. Your brain scans the environment. I'm in danger. I need to get prepared. So it's important for school and parents to know that they don't have the ability to think or be logical during this time. If they are in that response, it's not the time for learning. It's not time for talking about the behaviors being bad or unhelpful. They're not going to take that information in. It can take around 20 to 60 minutes, sometimes even longer, to get back to calm, back to that baseline. And if you have a neurodivergent child or a child that's experienced trauma, it is going to take longer. So you need to wait for that calm to come down before you can really do any reflection or talking about it. So I talk to the children about the fizz. And this is something that they always remember and probably a useful term to use at home as well. So I say, oh, imagine I've got a bottle of pop, I shake it up and pass it to you. Would you open it? And to be fair, a lot of those children are like, yeah, I would open it and love the idea that they're going to spray a bottle all over the family and brothers and sisters. And I get many stories of the times that they've done that or telling us about how Mentos really makes it explode. And it's just memorable because that's how our body feels. When we are having big, big emotions, it's like a really fizzed up bottle of pop exploding. The more intense the feelings, the more fizz there is, the more physical feelings that we have. And when we reach our highest, so when that bottle's exploding with a fizz, that's when our survivor brain's kicked in and the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response has been activated. So I'll give them this little bit of an example. So this is not true for everyone, just some examples of what a person might feel when their fizz is building up. So they're calm and relaxed at the bottom, then it builds up and up and up. Might start noticing fidgeting, a tight chest, and then the top one for them would be eyes tearing up. And it's just about them listening to their body and think, okay, starting to tap your feet a little bit. That phase is building. Do I need to do a strategy right now? So it's about noticing it before it gets to that max fizz. And I do that by doing a body map. So I give them an outline of a body and get them to draw how it might feel when they flip their lid. So I let them choose for them. Usually they pick anger, but some people pick stress and worry and how they feel it. So do you have butterflies in your stomach? Do you have a fast heartbeat? Does it feel like your head's on fire or you feel confused? and shaking and tense fists, things like that. Because the more that they notice things in their body, the better they're going to be before they flip the lid and before that fizz reaches the top. So I've said flip the lid a few times, so just to explain what that actually is, and this is something that they really remember as well. So when you're in control, that's your thinking brain is in charge. And we use the fist like this because it's meant to be a bit of your brain model. So your thumb is your amygdala. So when it's tucked under your fingers, when they're curled over your thumb, that's what's in control. They're right next to each other. They can talk to each other. That helps you stay calm and make good decisions. But when you've lost control, you flip your fingers up, and that distance between your thumb and your fingers, so your amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, is much, much bigger. And when that happens, emotions are really, really big. Your thinking brain can't help. You can't think when you're in this mode. And we call that flipping your lid. So when your fizz is at the highest, that is you in survivor brain and flipping your lid. So if you ever see children come home doing the same, that's what they're talking about. So all of our work at Rise is related to cognitive behavioral therapy. So we're not therapists, but we have a lot of CPT skills. And it's basically this, the link between our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. Our emotions are often connected to what we're thinking. So if we change the way that we think, we'll change the way that we feel, and then we change our behaviors. So if we think in a positive way, and I sometimes liken that to having green glasses on, we'll feel good and we'll make helpful choices. Whereas if we think in an unhelpful way, so we've got those red glasses on, so maybe it's being self-critical, saying I'm bad at this, I can't do this, or people are laughing at me, you're going to feel quite rubbish and you're going to have maybe these intense feelings in your body. And we might make unhelpful choices because of that. We might try and stay off school and avoid. And that's important if I go back to this slide. I think really drilling in about emotions in the body is quite important because you'll have probably had it where your child's in the morning saying that they feel really sick, and they probably do feel sick, but are they feeling sick because they're unwell, or is it that anxiety? They're getting butterflies in the stomach and uncomfortable because they're worried about something. So noticing the difference between body emotions that are illness and emotions are really, really helpful. So then, how can you embed the zones at home if you aren't already? So for good emotion regulation, that's going to come from modeling. So you modeling good emotion regulation is going to help them. They're always watching you and watching school staff as well. So naming that emotion is really sounds really simple, but it's really quite powerful. And we're saying name them to tame them. So if you are flipped your lid and your amygdala is online, your survivor brain, if they can, even just saying what that emotion is, that triggers the thinking brain to come back on a little bit more and a little bit quicker. But remember that they might not be doing the best thinking when they're in that situation, when they flip the lid. But just saying, I am angry, I am sad, that can be really, really helpful. And you doing that for you. So I'm angry right now, I'm sad right now, I'm disappointed. I'm in the red zone right now because I'm angry. I need to calm down. I need to take a few deep breaths. I just need some space. Because you're saying these things and modeling that to them, they're going to start picking it up as well and being able to express how they're feeling and thinking about what they need because of that feeling. So you can use I statements, just like the examples I've said, where you literally started with I. So I feel this. When you did this, it made me feel sad. I need to take 5 minutes alone right now, and kind of encouraging that sentence started for them to get them going. So ideally doing the terminology that we do in sessions, the school should hopefully be doing that terminology as well. And if you're doing it at home as well, it's going to be a very consistent set of terminology at home, school, and hopefully will be helpful. So using the zones like, oh, are we in the blue zone right now? What do we need? Is your fizz building up? I'm noticing your legs tapping a bit. We're getting a lot of energy building up. Are we in control or have we flipped our lid in the thinking brain and survivor brains? So these are tend to be the terms that the children really quite remember, especially the fizz and flipping your lid. Making your own zones chart. So when I work with children, we give a booklet and we explore triggers and they make their own little toolkit. So when they're in the red zone, They have strategies written down for what they need. But having it a bit personalized at home can be helpful. So doing it to their interests. So we love Inside Out because it really just works really well with the zones. But do they like Fortnite? Do they like Minecraft? Do they have a favorite film? Like, I don't know, Marvel's quite a popular one as well. And putting them characters for the zones can be quite useful and quite helpful for them. So just kind of making their own chart. If they're interested in it, they're gonna do it more likely. But in the moment when we're flipped through it and we're really dysregulated, how can we support that regulation? So it's all going to come from co-regulation, which can be easier said than done. Basically, you need to be the calm. When their storm meets our calm, co-regulation occurs. And you've probably heard this term before, but if you get angry at them because they're angry, there's just a lot of anger going on, a lot of dysregulation, and nothing's going to resolve. Like I say, it is easier said than done. So when you notice the emotion or the zone, you need to think to yourself, am I regulated right now? Because if not, you need to self-regulate before you can co-regulate. And if that means just leaving them alone if they're safe to do so, say if they're in their room and you need to go to the bathroom, take 5 minutes to calm down, do it. You need to self-regulate before you can help them. When we're out of control, that logic system, like I said before, is broken. They can't think clearly. They're most likely in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode. So we've noticed the emotion or the zone. When you've noticed it, when you're self-regulated and calm, respond. Don't react. It can be really hard when they're doing really disruptive behaviors as well, but try and give gentle eye contact if appropriate for your child. Do some strategies. And that may be you just starting them off, think, okay, I'm going to do some deep breathing right now and see if they join you. Having a relaxed body language as well. So kind of creating that calm, safe body language that they'll respond to. And acknowledge it. So you don't want to be talking loads. They're not going to be able to take that in and it might trigger them a bit more. So just talk less, empathize. So I understand we're feeling angry. I'm going to help you. I am here. Keep it calm, keep it direct, and keep it slow. Your child might be screaming for you to get away, and if it's safe to do that, that's fine. Go leave them for 5 minutes. But sometimes if it's not safe, so I had a child in school who was under the table, and the teacher was saying, I can't leave you. It's not quite safe right now. And it wasn't safe for the other children. So they just had to say, I understand we're angry. I know you want me to leave. I'm going to stay here and be quiet, but I can't leave till I know everyone is safe. So they just stayed out the way. They didn't interact, but they had to be there to keep them safe. And then listen. So when they start kind of calming down, just let them talk, hold space for them to open up. Don't judge, create a safe space and connect. Try not to finish a sentence or guess what they might be trying to say. Just let them talk. Sometimes the processing time might take a long time. So it might be sitting in silence, which I think a lot of people can struggle with, but just let them lead it and don't try to interrupt. As I said, I gave them a booklet and the last page looks like this. This is their zones toolkit. So again, a little bit boring because I don't know the class when I go in. So you might remake it at home, a bit more interesting for them. And it's just about, okay, what can I do to help me get out of the blue zone? What's going to help me stay in that green zone? So if they notice they're getting a bit wriggly and they're moving out of the green zone, what can they do to stay in? What can help them get out of the yellow and what can help get out of the red? So like I say, it's not a bad thing if they're in the blue zone or yellow or even red at times, but we don't want to stay stuck in them. Don't try and encourage them to be kind. If they go in that red zone, be like, okay, we went in the red zone, it's happened. How can we make sure it doesn't happen again? What happened to put you in the red zone? What strategies can we do next time? So just take it as a learning opportunity. So I'll just give them some examples so that I do to for when I'm in different zones, and they can pick and choose what they want. They can do their own thing, and I try and reinforce that this might change week to week. And what works for them now might not work for them in 3 months' time, but let them lead this. Let them decide the strategies. Obviously, help and model what you might do, but if they're not putting things in there that they don't want to do, they're not going to do it. They have to be engaged and motivated to do it. So let them lead the zones to get. So if we go back to that scenario at the start, so your child comes home from school and puts their head on the table, they tell you they don't want to talk about it. What could we do? Giving them a bit space and time if they don't want to talk about it. They don't really have to. They might not be ready yet. If they're safe, give them space. Uh, just getting your body moving because when we're in the blue zone, we've got no energy. We're very low energy. So getting them moving, doing a physical activity, or even just giving them a little job like, oh, can you just take that upstairs for us? Getting the body moving can be quite helpful. It's like doing the opposite thing. So they've got no energy, they don't want to move. Try and get them moving because it does really help. If they don't want to talk to you, maybe can they talk to your partner, any siblings, friends, grandparents, anyone else? And don't be too hurt if they don't want to talk to you. It doesn't mean anything about you. It just they might not want to upset you, things like that, or they might just want someone else to talk to. Uh, they might not know how to express what it is they're feeling or how to start the sentence, so they might want to draw it. And just give them option to take a break or maybe again demonstrate some deep breathing. Whilst you are watching a film together, so you notice that they're in the yellow zone, they're wriggling around, they're disrupting their brothers and sisters, they're fiddling with toys but making a lot of noise. So what can we do? They might need a little bit of a moving break, a bit just stretching or jumping jacks, things like that, get rid of some of that energy. You may put a timer on and give them a topic to talk about if they really love Minecraft, Fortnite, or dinosaurs. Just give them time to really, really talk about it. Again, ask them to write or draw something related to what they watch. So give them something else to do. Drawing can be really, really helpful. Fidgets, ideally nothing too noisy that would disrupt the brothers and sisters further. Something to touch and squeeze to get that energy out. Deep breathing. You'll find that deep breathing generally helps in every zone. And just taking a mindful moment, taking a moment to pause, notice what's going on in the bodies and doing some stretches. An example for the red zone. So during a trip to the park, you notice your child standing with their arms crossed and frowning. They begin joining in a game of football with some other children, but start kicking the ball out of play. So again, if you notice, right, they're in that red zone. I'm getting a bit embarrassed because we're out in public. Parents might judge us. You might start feeling quite stressed and anxious and dysregulated. Just take a moment if they are safe. Take a moment to self-regulate and then interact. If you need to get them out of that situation, if they're a risk to the other children, get them away from everyone. Take them a safe space and calm down. Deep breathing again really, really, really helps. Give them an energy outlet, a bit like that yellow zone. Energy is really built up. It's really overwhelming in the red. So stomp your feet, squeeze something soft, running up and down, humming, spinning, star jumps. Just get some of that energy out. Squeezing and relaxing muscles. So this is progressive muscle relaxation, and it's basically when you breathe in, say for 4 seconds, you squeeze all your muscles. And when you breathe out slowly for 4 seconds, relax them. Because their body's got prepared in a fight mode. So everything's tense, all that energy's there. It's just a good way to release it. And they might write down feelings, frustrations on paper and rip it up. Because when you think, you're going really, really, really fast or think really, really quickly. So when you are writing things down, taking it out of your head, you kind of naturally slowing yourself down without realizing it. And that ripping it up gives them that like, because a lot of times they want to hit something or do something, so ripping it up feels a bit satisfying. And green zone, so you're at dinner, they're fiddling with the toy in their hands, but they're eating the meal, they're listening and joining in conversations. So just allow the fiddling. If that's what's helping it, then let them use fidget toys. If it causes disruption to anyone else, then maybe stop or give them something that wouldn't disrupt, because you don't want to regulate them by dysregulating other children. Praise them for joining in, like any opportunity to praise, any like helpful behavior or kindness, just really overpraise them and praise them for using a strategy that works for them. So in the moment, here's some more strategies. So a couple of breathing ones, which are quite popular because I think sometimes just doing some deep breathing could be quite hard for a lot of children. So having them something to focus on or getting their hands involved can be quite helpful. So we've got 5 finger breathing where you stretch out your hand and you trace up your finger and you breathe in, and then you trace down your finger and breathe out. And you do it all the way around your hand, nice and slow. So I always do 4 in, 4 out, but whatever's best for you. Balloon breathing. So this is imagining that you've got a balloon in your stomach, and when you breathe in, you are inflating that balloon, so it's the pushing the stomach out, which feels quite unnatural, but I really like this one. Actually, it really helps me. And when you breathe out, that balloon's deflating, so your stomach goes back. In the moment as well, some grounding and distraction techniques can be quite helpful. So kind of just basically getting their brain onto something else, maybe something a bit more fun. Grounding themselves in the moment. So when we are stressed and worried, we're always thinking about what's happening in the future. What if I get wrong tomorrow? What if my friends are not in? Things like that. So grounding is just basically focusing on the now, and you do that by engaging your senses. So you might do little kind of games. So looking around the room, find an object that begins with each letter of the alphabet. Or you might count the colours. You might pick a colour to focus on. So how many purple things can you see? How many purple things can you imagine? And then they might go through the rainbow. So it's just basically giving them a brain break from whatever is causing dysregulation. Then we've got some acceptance techniques. So kind of, this is how I'm feeling. What can I do about it? So, like I said before, kind of getting all those thoughts out your head, writing them down and ripping them up. I always add on about putting the paper in the recycling bin though as well. Rating it sounds very simple, but it can be quite powerful. If you notice that you're getting a bit stressed, put a timer on, rate your worry. So are you a 10 out of 10 right now? Set a timer for a minute, do some deep breathing, and remind yourself that the feeling will pass. You don't feel sad forever, you don't feel angry forever, you don't feel stressed forever. And then re-rate it. Have you gone down to a 9? Great, let's keep going. And it just kind of shows them, like what I just said, like you don't stay anxious forever. And then though active techniques to get rid of that energy built up. So doing some chair push-ups. So feet on the floor. It's like you're getting out of the chair and you forget what you're doing. Your palm push, so you push your palms together firmly, not cause injury, and hold, and it just gets out that energy. So we are running a little bit short on time, but I just want to quickly show you this. So I designed this for schools, and it's basically just a web link. I think Jess is putting it in the chat as well, so you've got the link there. And basically, when you notice what zone you're in, so I designed this for schools to see if they're coming from break and they're coming in and they're clearly in the yellow zone. You click the yellow zone and just kind of have a look at some strategies that we talk about in sessions, some extra ones, and some videos from our YouTube channel. And then, yeah, you just click through the zones, which one would be helpful for you. So Jess will pop that in the link in the chat as well. Right. Oh, sorry, there we go. So just as a bit of a take-home message, talking about emotions and naming emotions is powerful. Using the zones of regulation to talk about how we are feeling. We can use zones of regulation to talk how we're feeling and what strategies help. When we're in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode, they can't think clearly, so just let them have time to come down before any real reflection can happen. And work together, do some good modelling, and find and practice strategies that work for you both. And if they want to, create and update their own home zone toolkit. So I think Jess is putting some stuff in the chat. I think she's got the website link in there, or she will do in the strategies, some slides, and going to ask as well. Is there any questions, Jess?
There's nothing else that's came through in the Q&A so far, but I've popped all them links in the chat for her.
Lovely, thank you. I'll hang around for about 5 more minutes. If there's any questions, feel free to type, or I'll put the email back on if you want to email in. And if possible, we would love to hear some feedback if this has been helpful or things that we can do differently. So obviously we want to make sure that what we're delivering is helpful for parents and helpful for children. So if possible, could you just fill in a feedback form? And I'll, as I say, I'll hang around. And if not, thank you for joining, and I'll see you soon.